Welcome to the second episode of Down the Pipeline. I found another 4 games this week that were either interesting, that I found really cool, or that I just thought that, more word needed to be spread about these games. And the first game I found was the game Fright Night by Awful Good Games. Now, this game is a rules light and preparation light uh, horror game based on B movies, slasher flicks, and older style kind of cheesy by today's standard horror movies. And players take on these roles of just everyday people who cross paths with things that are not so everyday. And off the bat, you're probably wondering, what makes this game unique or special or anything? Well, the thing that makes it special is the fact that it's preparation light. And it does this by having a series of tables that randomizes the flow of events. Thus, the director, which is the term for the game master for Fright Night, is in control of the game, but only so much. They're not supposed to have control of the series of events and what will really be around the next corner. And this adds a really cool element to Fright Night that makes it, you probably want to do a really long campaign of it, but, say you've got, a regular campaign that you play every, week or whatever. And one week, a player or two can't show up. You don't want to progress without them. This game seems like it would fit the bill for that night really well because it's very rules light. It seems it's based on d6s. You just roll a pool based upon, I'm assuming, dots or points or whatever. It's not really doesn't say that on the Kickstarter, but it does say that you roll a pool of d6s and fives and sixes count successes, much in the same way that World of Darkness's system works. And then you've got the entire tables that the director does, just rolls on to determine what's going to happen next. And this seems really cool because within 30 minutes you can be playing a game that everyone's getting to be along for the ride and see what happens because, like I said, the director doesn't know it's around the corner and neither do the players. So this adds a really nice difference to how horror games typically are, which in my experience are very preparation heavy because you need to prepare, atmosphere, you need to have everything in its little place to actually even attempt to evoke an emotion from your players. So, yeah, while they're really fun, they are preparation heavy, which is why I think this is really interesting in the fact that it is preparation, light as well as rules light. And it seems like you get a very nice feeling of accomplishment by playing it. Like I said, though, you probably don't get a lot of play from a single character, but you could try and run a series of them, but that's your prerogative. I just thought it was very interesting. This very rules light preparation light horror game that is built to evoke those feelings of B movies and slasher flicks and what have you, and to have a good time. I think that's really cool. The second game I found is actually also horror. It is a expansion-ish book for PERK, the Pretty Easy Role Playing Game System, by I lost the name. It's being put up by Buddy Wagner, and PERK is actually already a game that exists. You can buy it on Amazon, but what this is PERK Horror. It is a game that opens up the entire door of things like werewolves, vampires, and mummies, and zombies, and twisted clowns, and whatever. And this is another really cool game in that sense because this one allows you to play all of those characters, and it also, again, it's also a rules light game. And you know another problem with some of these horror games is you get bogged down with like in this one where you're playing a monster. When you play monsters, you typically get bogged down with special rules, powers, conditions, all these things. Vampires can't be in the sun. Well, that means your game's always at night. Or your werewolf can't, will shift on the full moon and destroy everything. I mean, so you have all those things, and they begin to kind of bog you down and can really restrain your story. And because well, if you have like a lot of rules, is what I'm saying. Uh, but this one is rules light, and also they've gone through and designed their own world for it. It's a dark, twisted modern Earth. Sounds very World of Darknessy, but uh, they seem to have tried to expand common folklore and build on common folklore, which adds a really cool, unique twist to the game because that means that you're not just playing with vampires and werewolves and zombies and your run of the mill things. You could get very weird, off the wall things like uh, some voodoo priestess from New Orleans or some strange, twisted clown zombie thing. All those things that are folklore that were, to scare and to, terrify. And I think it's really cool because one of my favorite types of games to run is horror. So, when there's various options on how to do horror and, do it rules light, do it really heavy, do it with, various ways, I really enjoy that because it means that if I'm playing a pickup game, I can go to this one. Or if I've got a little bit more prep time, but it's a one shot, I could do this. Or if I really want a lot of character growth, I can do that one. But so I really enjoy the horror games, and especially when they offer different things that are break the mold of normality. So, and that one still, that one also I should have mentioned. Both Fright Night and PERK are both underfunded right now. They have 17 days to go, both of them. PERK has 18, Fright Night has 17. So there's still plenty of time, and they both have very low buy-in costs, I should say. Goal thresholds, too. So, consider backing them. The third one is it's not a core rule book or anything. It's a series of scenarios for Call of Cthulhu. It's being put out by Pagan Publishing, and it is Horrors of War: A Covenant with Death. So, Horrors of War is what Pagan Publishing wants to be a series of books revolving around war. I mean, as the name implies, Horrors of War. Well, this first book will actually deal with World War One or the Great War, and will be a series of adventures or scenarios, dated around 1914 to 1918. And this is I like I mentioned a moment ago, I love horror games, so Call of Cthulhu is one of my favorite games to run and play. So, but obviously, the times are you can do it in Rome, Dark Ages, Gaslight, 1920s, and modern. Depending on when the source book for that modern game was put out, it could be in the Cold War or it could be actually modern. But the Great War is mentioned, and I think there is a few adventures in source books, not by Chaosium out, but there's so much you can do with a Call of Cthulhu game if you put it in a war setting. So I love the idea of being in the World War II paranormal task forces and all that stuff, countering Hitler's stuff, and later on in the modern era doing semi Delta Green-esque stuff. But the Great War has this other element of horror because you can not only play up the horror of whatever eldritch being you brought into existence, but then there's that entire horror of you're in a trench most of the time A grenade could come over. There could be a rush, or you could be ordered to rush. The enemy trenches, and so there's all that other elements of horror that you can play with that are really prevalent in the Great War that were prevalent in a different way in World War II and later on. So I really like that, and the fact that it's a series of books, and that this is the first one that you know that's just gonna build a really cool chronicle of you could do a game where uh, you know the first set of adventures it's all one group or one platoon or whatever. But what if say the next book deals with World War II? You could then have all of the players, all the characters that are being played in the second scenario book. What if they're the sons of whoever survived in the first scenario? Well, that would add this really cool element where they grew up with Uncle, Granddad Benny's got some weird stories about what he saw in war, and then these characters get to experience that, which could be a really cool role playing setup. So, I think it's another cool game that would be interesting. And obviously, like I said, Call of Cthulhu is always great, and that one actually has been funded, and they still have 24 days to go. So, there's gonna be a lot of stretch goals, most likely. I can only assume, and another one to consider backing, especially if you're running Cthulhu. I think there's like Actum Cthulhu is in World War One, so this could even be a nice companion setup to whatever that, if that is for World War One. I'm not sure. I don't actually own any of those books. And so the fourth game is not horror, though it kind of is. This one is the Sprawl. It is a cyberpunk role playing game. Now, this one is also, it's been funded. It's got 27 days to go. And, there's a lot of stretch goals that have been planned. But this one's really cool because, one, it's in open playtesting. So, there's some people have probably already heard of it. And I think you might even be able to go on the forums and read about it from people who have played it. But one of the really cool things about it is it tries to do that like cyberpunk feel, but without bogging you down with endless tables or rules that don't fit or anything like that. And essentially the idea is that you play thugs from uh, you know you were skilled and you're a fixer, and the world is run by these multinational corporations that they want to engage with corporate espionage, assassination, your general cyberpunk setting. And I saw the video, and I've read through the Kickstarter, and it seems really cool. Like uh it's very lethal, but it's also semi yet again semi rules light. It's very malleable to whatever your needs are, but really allows you to feel the evolution of characters, and begin to get a sense of the world around you through its various evocative art, through the system, through uh, you know the movies and stuff that inspired it. So I mean, I'm not doing it as much justice as it really deserves, because I mean it's far better to look at the video on his Kickstarter, or go to the playtesting forums, because honestly, like, this game is really cool. You can do things like drive panzers across the west. You can just do all that cyberpunk ish stuff, and it's really cool, and you should check it out. And yet again, the buy-in's really low because it's actually New Zealand dollars, which for those in the US, USD is, I think it's one New Zealand, no, one US dollar is like 120 New Zealand, or $1.20 New Zealand. So it's a really favorable exchange rate. But check it out. It's mission based action, gritty neon chrome cyberpunk game. But it's designed for it, and it looks like it's far less complicated than Cyberpunk 2020, despite how amazing that game is. So until next time,